Hello, and welcome to the Allegheny Franciscan Ministries ACOR Grant webinar for fiscal year 2022. We are delighted that you're interested in learning more about the ACOR Grant program and have decided to spend some time with us today. Whether you're learning about ACOR for the first time or if you're already a grant partner, we hope you will find this information shared today to be helpful to you. My name is Erin Baird, and I'm the Director of Grants at Allegheny Franciscan Ministries. I'm joining the webinar today from my home in Tampa, Florida, where I'm working from home. I manage the ACOR Grant program and will be your primary contact for questions you may have. Joining me today is Carla Batts, our Community Investment Specialist. She manages the administration of our grant programs. She's also our technology expert about our grant management software. So she will be talking to you about how to apply and more information about deadlines and things of that nature. She'll be joining us later on in the process. So here's our agenda for today. We'll begin and open with a prayer, which is our tradition, a prayer reflection. As a Catholic organization, this is how we usually start our meetings. Then we will share some information about the organization, Allegheny Franciscan Ministries. We'll jump right into the meat of the webinar, and we'll talk about the ACOR Grant program. And at this point, you'll hear from Carla and hear about how to apply for a grant. And lastly, we'll close with sharing our contact information so you can reach out to both of us if you have any questions, as well as understand how to connect with Allegheny Franciscan Ministries. So let's begin with a prayer. I chose Peace Prayer, also known as the Prayer of St. Francis, to share with you today. This popular prayer dates back to the early 1900s and reflects our Franciscan values. It reminds us how we ought to behave and treat others, even in times like the one we're in, such difficult and challenging times. I'm going to share the first part of the prayer with you. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Amen. So Allegheny Franciscan Ministries is a nonprofit Catholic organization founded in 1998. We provide grants and work with community partners primarily to serve the needs of the historically disenfranchised and oppressed persons within our communities. We trace our roots to the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny, a community of vowed women religious. The tradition and the visions of the sisters is deeply embedded in our work. And now I want to take a few minutes to share a short video about our history.
I'm Margaret Mary Kimmons, OSF, Order of St. Francis. I'm the Congregational Minister of the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny, New York, and I come initially from Brooklyn. Brooklyn. At one time in our history, when we were started in 1859, we did everything. If there was a hospital to run, we ran it. If there was a school built, we were the principal. We did everything. As we continue to develop, we've gone into other ministries because our founder said to us, respond to the needs of the people.
Allegheny Franciscan Ministries works in communities in Florida to improve the health of the community. We do that through making grants to nonprofit organizations who provide access to health care or health information, or who work on systems that impact people's health. We also work directly in the community, bringing people together to talk about and organize around issues related to people's health. The sisters sold St. Francis Hospital in Miami and sold St. Mary's Hospital in West Palm Beach. And then here in the Tampa Bay area, St. Joseph's Hospital and St. Anthony's Hospital merged with others to form Baycare. Through all of those transactions, funds were set aside to create Allegheny Franciscan Ministries.
The entirety of AFM, I think, is a testament to the great work of the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny. Their vision of healthcare that they had provided to those communities and how important that was to those communities, but also recognizing when it was time to transition and to do something different in those communities.
To me, the idea is that we're building a partnership for the future, that we're handing on our legacy by training others and saying, this is how you carry on the ministry, this is how you work with people. You form partnerships, you bring dignity to them, you bring integrity. And so therefore, the mission, the charism, the spirit that we had, hopefully, will get passed on to others, and lay people will carry that on. We have already said to our board members, you are the people for the future for us. We're trying to train you and show you how our mission works, and we're asking you to carry that on.
Allegheny Franciscan Ministries approaches health from a very holistic perspective. We look at health from a social perspective, a behavioral perspective, from the environment, and from all the systems that impacts people's health. The Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny really give us the courage and the drive to do what's right in the world, to make sure that people who may not have a voice are given a voice, to make sure that people who may not have access to health care, to health information, to health resources have that access.
AFM is the future embodiment of what the Franciscan Sisters are all about. And it gives them the opportunity to do the things that they've always done and that they've always wanted to do. For them, it really is the organization for their future.
AFM is significant to our mission, so significant, integral to our mission. It's what we would do if we could. I know when I thank them, I get emotional because we're just so grateful to have Allegheny Franciscan Ministry to continue our mission and our charism, that whole different way of doing things.
You know, I've used the word courage a lot, and that's one of the charisms of the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny. It is what they are. And I like to think that Allegheny Franciscan Ministries is a courageous organization in really trying to make sure that we aren't sitting on our laurels, that we are really looking to be the best that we can be, to take risks, to try the next thing. And if that's courage, then that's what we should be doing.
I hope you enjoyed that video and it gave you a deeper understanding of our history and our values and the spirit and the way in which we approach our work. Before we move on, I just wanted to mention that it mentioned how many grants we awarded to date, and the video was actually completed a couple years ago, and we're now up to $108 million awarded in grants to over 1,700 organizations. So we are very proud and happy to be able to have been a part of helping nonprofits in this way. So Allegheny Franciscan Ministries is also part, we have a history with the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny, But we also are connected and a part of a Catholic health system, a national Catholic health system called Trinity Health. Together, we have a shared mission to serve in the spirit of the gospel as a compassionate and transforming healing presence within our community. Trinity serves more than 30 million people across 22 states and has a footprint of 90 hospitals, including one here in Florida, Holy Cross in Fort Lauderdale, as well as 100 continuing care locations throughout the country. We enjoy a close relationship with our health system, Trinity Health, which we actually refer to as our parent company. Recently, in the past year, we've developed a vision statement that serves as a guidepost for our future. It describes what we aspire to and what the world would look like if we were to achieve our mission. So you can see it here. It says the communities we serve will become ever more just, equitable, and caring. Everyone in our communities will be welcome and have the resources to thrive. Justice and equity are important themes here. Just social conditions promote the common good and the good of every individual. A just community embraces change and makes choices that promote healthy community, nurtures the earth, and protects future generations. Equity ensures all people have fair opportunities to achieve their full potential, creating communities that feel physically, mentally, spiritually at a common level. We also have, in addition to our mission and vision, we have a set of core values that we also share with Trinity Health, our parent company or organization. And you can see those here: reverence, justice, commitment to those who are poor, stewardship, integrity, and safety. And you've heard, I've already touched on several of those, but one I just wanted to highlight is commitment to those who are poor. We believe that every individual is made in the image of God and shares the same rights to life, food, clothing, healthcare, shelter, education, productive work, and fair wages. At Allegheny Franciscan Ministries, we're especially committed to supporting people who have been marginalized and oppressed. And we hope that everything we do flow from these values, our mission, and our vision. Now I wanted to take this opportunity for you to meet our entire staff team. We are a small but mighty group of 8 individuals, talented and caring individuals. For ACOR, you will probably be most in contact with Carla, myself, and our newest team member, Danny Huggins. She is our Administrative and Grant Services Coordinator and is in the office several days a week. And so you may reach her by the phone. She also is responsible for awarding the grant payments. So there may be an opportunity that you might speak with her, as well as I can't not include our President and CEO, Eileen Coogan. But those are probably the staff that you would have the most interaction with. Just so you know that our staff, we are working in a hybrid environment. We have all of our staff to some extent is working remotely. A few of our staff are actually coming into our Palm Harbor office a couple days a week. So we try to have someone in the office every day to be able to answer the phones, but know that if you leave a voicemail or an email, we will of course respond to them, and know that our voicemail generates an email, so we get a message right away that you called. So we will not, so we will get your message if you are reaching out to us. So now we're ready to talk about the ACOR grant program itself. ACOR stands for Allegheny Community Outreach. That's outreach with 2 words, out and then reach as separate words. This program is designed to honor the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny and their ongoing community work, where they continue to serve in outreach ministries. You heard a lot about this in that video about the history and how we're really how the sisters' work is embedded in our work, and that we're really carrying on their tradition and vision. ACOR grants focus on improving health, wellness, and the quality of life for local and marginalized populations. a lot of especially here in Florida, the root of our funding is based on healthcare ministries. And so there is a focus on healthcare, although we do broadly address social determinants or social indicators of health, including education, employment, housing, things of those nature. ACOR grants are a unique grant program for Allegheny Franciscan Ministries, in that most of our funding through Allegheny Franciscan Ministries is focused on 3 geographic regions or 6 counties. There's some small statewide efforts, but really our focus is in Florida. ACOR expands those boundaries, and nonprofit organizations are able to apply and access those funding beyond those geographic areas. But there is a particular requirement for an affiliation with the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny Associates or Trinity Health, and I'll speak about more of that in a minute. But we also have, the sisters also have a presence in Jamaica, Bolivia, and Brazil. And so you may notice when we get to the application materials, or if you're looking on our website, we have made those materials available in Portuguese so that they are easily accessible. So if you are on this webinar and are applying on behalf of or working with a sister in Brazil, we do have all of the documents available in Portuguese. So reach out to me if you can't find it on the website, or Carla, and we will make sure that you have that information. We do make some accommodations so that you don't have to follow. So things are easier for you to apply because you're applying with another. We understand that there's a language barrier to some extent. So ACOR grants are intended to be short-term grants. They're grants of up to $10,000. They're not intended to provide ongoing support. You can certainly apply for less than $10,000, and we do receive some of those, but you are also welcome to apply for the full amount. Grants are usually 1 year. They're awarded for a 1 year time frame. If you finish the grant earlier, you're able to let me know, and we can work on closing that grant. If it's longer, if you need more time, you haven't spent, if something happened, if there was a change in staffing, or just for some reason you need additional time, we're able to grant extensions as well. Again, just we need to have that communication, and we can move forward with that. So basically, there are program-related grants and operational grants, and I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. Traditionally, ACOR has funded program-related grants, and when COVID happened in 2020, we extended it because we understand that organizations, just to be able to keep the lights on and programs running, need some flexibility in those dollars. And so we have added general operating, and we'll continue to offer that. Also, just to note, since ACOR is one of our longest running programs here at Allegheny Franciscan Ministries, and to date we've awarded 761 grants totaling $4.1 million. So that's awesome to be able to support the sisters' work in this way. Now I just want to talk to you briefly about the difference between general operating and program grants. If you've applied to us in the past, you may have noticed that we've asked a specific question if you're applying for general operating or program. That you will not find those in this application this time. But there are some other related questions for program. Program-related grants are related to specific activities and projects that an organization may have that address health, wellness, and quality of life for marginalized communities. Examples could be a 6-month English as a second language class, or jackets or coats for people experiencing homelessness, or a specific advocacy campaign to oppose pollution of a waterway. Those are just some very specific examples, and those are project or program grants. In the grant application, there's a specific question that asks for the program budget that you will need to answer. So it should, in most cases, it should be that number should be larger than what you're asking for funding. So if you're doing it, for example, a language or citizenship class, you might be asking for $10,000 for staffing and materials, but the program itself might cost $30,000 to operate. So that's something that you're going to want to show in the application. Now, if you're applying for a general operating request, you do not need to put in the project amount. The project budget will be the organizational budget. And general operating requests support the organization's overall mission and goals. This could be things like rent, utilities. It could be one-time infrastructure costs such as a phone system or computer upgrade, or just general support of staffing. Keep in mind that if you are asking, well, actually talk about this on the next page, so I'll hold off on that one. If you're one other thing to note, if you're applying for general operating support, please make sure that you there's always a field for project name. Make sure you put general operating support in that. Don't put your organization's name or another topic. If you're really looking for general operating support, as I just indicated, type in those words, general operating or general operating support. That will be helpful to us. So with all grant programs, there are eligibility and or criteria or guidelines which organizations and foundations require. So I will share those with you. Some of them I've alluded to already. The first is you need to be a 501c3 organization with the IRS, recognized by the IRS. So you're a recognized nonprofit. If you are a Franciscan Sister of Allegheny serving outside of the US, I mentioned there are some programs that are outside of the US, you will most likely apply under the congregation of the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny. So speak with your local minister about how to, what you should use for that, for your 501c3. Secondly, we have a grant agreement that if your grant is awarded, you need to sign and agree to the terms. This includes things such as you are a 501c3, you'll use the funds as you originally planned, things of that nature. So if you want to see what a grant agreement looks like, the sample grant agreement before you actually apply, if you have any questions about that, you're able to, if you're looking back at these slides later, you can click on this link. Or there also is a link under the grant overview. I believe it's under grant overview on our website. So you can take a look at that, the grant agreement there. The next thing that I want to highlight is probably the most asked question for this program is the affiliation requirement for ACOR. ACOR grants, like I mentioned earlier, designed to support the sisters' ministries where they're actively involved in outreach work currently. So applicant organizations must have a Franciscan Sister of Allegheny, Allegheny Franciscan Associate. And what I mean by that, that's the congregation's lay ministry program. Or be a member of Trinity Health, which is our parent company. So different hospital systems have nonprofits related with them, and those are eligible to apply for funding. So by affiliated, I mean that the sister or the associate must be a volunteer, a board member, an employee of the organization, or the organization itself is sponsored by the congregation, the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny. So if you have questions about your affiliation, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you about that. And that's just the number one questions, but this whole program is designed to support the sisters in their work and their current ministries. Some they are directly involved and responsible for leading that project. Other times they may be serving in an advisory capacity or a board member, and the nonprofit will apply directly. So there's different situations. Just if you have any questions or concerns about that, just reach out. I'm happy to talk to you about that. And then finally, you need to be in good standing. So if you have received an ACOR grant in the past, you need to have submitted, you need to be up to date with the progress reports, that there's nothing outstanding or have any concerns with past grants. And off the top of my head, I don't think there's any issues with any active grants. I mean, of course, there are reports that haven't been completed, but I don't think there's any concerns about any misuse or anything like that. So it's really a matter of, are you up to date with your reporting? The limitations, you can receive up to 1 ACOR grant a year, and that is from the date the last grant was awarded. So if you received a grant just this last, or in the fall cycle, if you've received one last spring, you're not eligible to apply for and receive another grant at this time. Secondly, you can send up to 1 application per cycle. Some organizations are larger, and sometimes we will receive more than 1 application. I will ask you to pick which one you would like to be considered, because we can only consider 1 from each organization per grant cycle. Organizations, we mentioned this, if you have an active grant, the grant report needs to be submitted and the grant needs to be closed before you're able to apply for new funding. So if you have an active grant, you will not be eligible to apply for new funding. The grant is not available for, it's for nonprofit organizations. It's not available for individuals, public agencies, fundraising events, and endowments. And finally, we discourage requesting funding for an individual salary completely. So that's $10,000 for 1 salary. We certainly support and understand that staffing is a huge part of offering programs, and are supportive of funding staffing. The request is really not to request that whole amount for 1 position. And the thinking behind this is that we're not able to provide ongoing support for that position. If you know that you have funding coming up in the future and you just need it for the initial startup, that's a different situation, and make sure you mention that in your application. But the intent is not to provide ongoing support to fund a position. The funding is limited, and the program is not intended to provide ongoing support in that way. So ACOR has priority criteria, and these are different criteria that we use to evaluate grants. So first, we mentioned what the focus was, improving health, wellness, and quality of life. So that, of course, is something that we're looking for, and specifically with a holistic approach. Are you considering factors that may affect the success of the project? The time of the day the program is offered, is transportation provided or needed, childcare, spiritual care. So these are just some examples of addressing a project holistically. Promoting self-sufficiency and bringing about systemic change. We know that $10,000 is not a large amount of money to address some of these larger issues, but we love to be able to be a part of addressing some of these root causes of ongoing issues and disparities. And so when there's an opportunity to significantly change an issue, we'd love to be a part of that, to use funding for that. Provide services to marginalized groups. And here is an opportunity where we identify who those marginalized groups are. For a while, we've said we've served vulnerable and marginalized groups, but we really want to be more clear and specific in who we are looking at serving. And here, by marginalized groups, we mean BIPOC. You may have heard of that term before. It refers to Black, Indigenous, people of color, and any racial group that identifies as non-white. So that is who we're looking for ideally serving as far as marginalized groups. This also includes other groups such as members of LGBTQ plus community, low income persons, people experiencing or people with disabilities, and other historically disenfranchised groups. So there you will find a question on the application. We want to know if you're serving these communities and specifically which community you're serving. The next priority criteria is to strive to incorporate the viewpoint of individuals who are served. And this, what this would look like is having clients surveyed about the program. They might be serving on advisory councils or on your board. So if you are doing that, including the viewpoint of those that you're serving, please make sure that you mention this in the application. And finally, focus on women. Our roots are with women religious and seeking, and so we seek to address equality of women in our work. And again, if you're working with women, please make sure you indicate this. This year in the application, there are actually questions that you can select which of these that you address, and then there's actually a text box area where you can be more specific and explain that how you address those priority criteria. I want to give you an example of a funded grant partner so you can understand you know, who might be a sample grant partner. Canticle Farm is a community supported certified naturally grown farm that grows chemical-free vegetables in Allegheny, New York. The farm has a close connection to the community, providing educational programs, and it donates 20% of its harvest to human service agencies. Recently, we've awarded Canticle Farm over the years, but their most recent grant was a general operating request, and it was used to replace an old UTV, utility vehicle, to transport people and plants and supplies throughout the 10-acre property. The connection as far as affiliation is we have a Franciscan Sister of Allegheny who is actually the executive director of Canticle Farm. So there is that, of course, connection and affiliation with the sisters. So just wanted to share an example of one of our funded projects. To help us guide this work, review the applications, and make funding decisions, we use a grant committee. And the grant committee includes members of the Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny, as well as community leaders. We currently have the following 6 leaders that you see on the page, on the slide. And we have quite a few Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny, but we also have community leaders who have experience running nonprofits and also working with the marginalized groups that we seek to serve. Finally, before I turn it over to Carla, I just wanted to address some of the changes that we made. Every year we review the application and see what's working and not working. But this year we're also looking at more broadly in all of our grant making, embracing trust-based philanthropy principles, which includes streamlining the application. And also making trying not to ask questions that are not used in the decision making and just asking for what we need. So this may actually not seem like that, but the first one is a letter of intent. So the big change this year is we have 2-step process to the application. The first step is a letter of intent, and it's a short 4-question application. And it really is an eligibility quiz and ask those questions about affiliation. Because there's a specific focus on the sisters ministries and Trinity Health, we need to ask those questions. And this is one way where you do not need to spend all your time completing the application if there's a question or if you're not eligible. So hopefully you will find this helpful. It does require you to complete the application, the LOI, earlier to have the full application, if you're invited, completed on time by the regular date that our fall cycle always is, which is October 1st. The full application looks more like our regular application, although we did remove several questions. So just going back to the second bullet here, that the affiliation questions are in the LOI. We did not ask a question about describing your affiliation last year and had some questions, so we're adding that back in. That's one of the 4 questions that is in the LOI. And by the way, these questions carry over to the full application, so you do not need to complete these affiliation questions again. But there are less questions overall in the full application. One of those is the budget categories. If you've applied with us before, we had budget categories for things such as supplies, personnel, food, things of those nature. We do not ask those individual questions. We have a question about the total amount requested from us, the project budget if you have a program grant, and then a description of your expenses. And here I would encourage you to really describe those and not just say food $10,000 or $5,000. Explain that it's over a 6-month period, that it's serving this amount of meals. Be more specific in that. Even though the categories are gone, please still include what level of detail you're able to provide there. So I think, and the last one is verbal reporting. And so hopefully you'll find this as a positive thing. We will no longer require final reports. We will do a verbal report, so you do not need to submit something in writing to us as far as a final report for the grant, but there will be a 30-minute to 1 hour conversation, which I will initiate about 1 year after the grant is completed. We could do it a little earlier if all the funding has been spent. And I will share the questions in advance, and it will just be a conversation. But it is important to still keep in mind that the funding should be used as was originally requested, and you'll get additional information. So I won't go too much into it, but hopefully you'll find that as a positive thing. It is kind of moving the burden or the responsibility to us to initiate that, and for us to have a conversation, for us to learn from you about what worked and what didn't work. So now I think y'all are hopefully you're interested in learning how to apply and take that next step. So I'm going to pass it over to Carla, who's going to talk to you about that.
Great, thanks so much, Erin. So for, these next few slides, like Erin mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the process of logging into our online grants management system, and then go ahead and show you how to access the fiscal year 22 ACOR grant LOI or letter of intent application. As Erin mentioned earlier, we did change the process this year for ACOR for this new grant program, and we now have the 2-step process. So the LOI is really that first piece that needs to be completed so we can verify your direct affiliation indicated before making the full application available to you. So on this slide that you see here, the first step that you would do to accessing the grant system is going to our website. So you can see that listed at the top on the slide at www.afmfl.org. So this is the homepage that you'll land on when you go to our website, and you want to look at that top menu bar and look for the login tab. Once you click login, there will be 2 options in the dropdown. You want to make sure that you choose applicant grant partner login in order to get to the logon page. So from there, this is the logon page that you would land on to access our grant system. If you're a past applicant and you already have login credentials, you can go ahead and just enter your email and password right here and click the log on button. There's also underneath the red arrow at the bottom, it pointing up, you see this forgot your password link to reset that if needed. Please note that that link does expire in 24 hours and it could possibly go to junk mail. So just make sure if you do use that feature to check it as quickly as possible and to reset that. If you get to the logon page and you don't know if your organization already has an established account in the system, you can click where the other red arrow is pointing to that create new account button. But it's possible that maybe somebody else in your organization that you're not aware of already created an organization account for you all in the past. So when you go to create that, if you're not sure, if the EIN or the tax ID number already exists in the system, you will receive a pop-up warning message that says your organization already exists and to call me. So if that's the case, please don't try to move forward with creating a new one, because we want to make sure that we're not duplicating organization accounts in our system, but instead just please reach out to me directly. The pop-up message actually does have my contact information listed, and then we'll also be sharing that at the end of the webinar. If you reach out, I can either set you up with an active user account under the organization. If that's already the case, that's an easy way for me to handle that with you. But it's also possible you might have a user account, but just don't recall if you do. Again, I would just recommend the best thing to do is to reach out to me if you have any questions on that. So then I can either confirm the login credentials that we have on file for you or assist with getting you set up if you're not already active in the system. One other area here I just wanted to note is the gray message box you see over to the far right. That is going to provide some helpful tips on our grant system. One main key point here is that Google Chrome is really the preferred internet browser and does work best with this grants platform. So if you do have Google Chrome or can have access to that, please use that if you can for Foundant platform. There's also a video tutorial you'll see that we've added in that gray box if that's helpful, if you do need to create a new account. And then you'll see my contact information is also listed there at the bottom. So if you have any account related questions or any issues you're experiencing, you can reach out to me as well for that. Whoops, okay. All right, so once you've logged in successfully, you're either going to be brought to one or two pages in our system. So you will either land on the apply page, which is what you see here, or you're going to be brought to your applicant dashboard. So I'll just explain the difference between the two. If you don't have any prior user activity in our system, meaning you've never submitted an application, you've never been assigned to sign grant agreements or complete reports, then this is the page that you'll land on. You'll automatically go to the supply page. If you had any activity as a user for a particular request submitted with us in the past, you will be brought to your applicant dashboard. If that's the case and you're brought to your applicant dashboard, that's no problem. You would just look at your top left menu bar like you see on this screen. You see the apply tab next to the home icon. You can just click that button, and so that will bring you directly to this page. A quick tip for navigating to your account, just wanted to mention here too, you can always get back to your dashboard if you have an applicant dashboard already. If you're on another page in the system, you can easily just click that home icon you see on the top left next to our logo, and that will automatically bring you back to your applicant dashboard. So what to note here, once you're on the supply page, you will see we have a couple of current open applications right now to the public that'll be listed there right on the page. You can just click the blue apply button outside of where it says ACOR grant application fiscal year 22. So just be careful. We have had applicants think they're starting the correct application and then they begin on something else. So I just wanted to circle that here, make sure it's the ACOR grant application fiscal year 22, and then you would click that blue apply button to get to the LOI grant application. And also, we just strongly encourage you to read the instructions. You can see at the top here, we've posted, that two-step process that Aaron was talking about earlier. We also have our cycle deadlines here for LOI and the full application if you're invited. and also the grant program overview. So it's really important to reference that. We encourage you to read that, before you even start the application process and you're looking into it, as well as while you're working through that. The last thing here I wanted to point out is also that gray preview button that you see at the very bottom left of your screen. You can choose to preview the LOI questions before starting the application if you want to use that feature. Once you click that preview button, the screen will open up and you'll have the option to click print question list if you feel that's something that's helpful as you're moving forward. And that does provide the character counts as well. Okay, so now we're on to the LOI questions. We wanted to give you a quick snapshot glimpse of kind of what you will see when you click the apply button from the apply page for this particular grant program. So the LOI questions, this is what you'll see on the form, and just really think of this, it's a very brief, simple 4-question application. And think of this really, it's very similar to like an eligibility quiz would be. It's to inform us of your direct affiliation that Aaron described earlier that's required to apply. You'll enter your project name, what the affiliation is, who that affiliation is with a description of how they're involved with your organization or any involvement with a specific project in which you're requesting funding. So it's pretty brief and pretty simple, and then we'll go over that and kind of the full application here in just a little bit. I did want to mention character limits. So every question field will show the total amount allotted for that particular question. As you either type information into those narratives or you copy and paste into those narrative sections, those character counts will count down automatically for you. So you know where you are and how much space that you have left. Spaces are included, so just take note of that. And we really tried to do our best to set up appropriate character counts in the LOI as well as the full application, just based on the question being asked. And you can certainly use all that space provided if desired. However, please know that those character counts do not mean that we expect you to use all of that space. We're just hoping it provides enough for you to give the response that you want to provide. So, and then the last couple pieces here. So I've circled down at the bottom that save LOI button. It's just always important. I know the LOI form is short, but particularly if you're approved and go to the full application, it's always a good idea if you need to save your work and come back to it. If you click the save LOI button, you can go back when you log in, you'll be brought to your dashboard and you can click edit LOI link under the request, and then that will allow you to get back into that application. The submit LOI button is really important. So we've had people in the past, applicants in the past think that they have actually, when they click the save button that it's been submitted. That button really needs to be clicked to make sure that we receive it, so you're considered and that we actually can review the LOI. And so just a reminder, we have had applicants in the past thinking that they've done that. So just be sure to click the submit LOI button when you're finished with that application. And the final piece to this is just noting where that red arrow is at the top, there's a button called collaborate. So just wanted to highlight this here. This is a newer feature in our grant system, and it really just allows applicants from an organization to work together collaboratively on a single request. So this could be a situation where you may have a grant writer that is working with your organization that you're wanting to collaborate, and invite that person to maybe help review, edit, maybe they get permissions to submit the application. So it could be a use case like that. Multiple applicants from an organization really just working together on something. It could be a way that you need somebody else to view it or edit it before you're going to submit the request. So just if you wanted to check that out, that could be something useful, just based on how that might work with your team or how many people you have that are assisting with the process. And I've added a couple helpful tutorial links at the bottom left that you see on the slide, in case that's something you feel would be useful or helpful for your team. And of course, always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about that feature or if you come across any issues that you're experiencing with it. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we went over a little bit about the LOI. It's, you know, a brief 4 short question application form. Again, it's going to ask that project name, the direct affiliation with either Franciscan Sisters of Allegheny, a Franciscan Sister of Allegheny associate, or a Trinity Health Ministry, and then what that description looks like, either with your organization currently, or again, involvement with the current project that you're requesting funds for. Please know that our team is reviewing LOIs daily, so we will try to get in touch with you after we review as quickly as possible to let you know either way if it's been approved, so you know that if it has been approved, then you can kind of move forward with that next step of completing the full application. So if the LOI and the affiliation indicated on that form that you submit is approved, the applicant who submitted it is going to receive an email notice generated through our grant system. It's going to let them know your LOI has been approved, and it will also include information on how to access the full application from the Applicant Dashboard. And if the LOI is not approved, the applicant will also receive an email notification to inform of that decision, just so you're aware either way. On the other hand, if you're approved, the full application will become available to you. As I mentioned, you'll see it on the application after we, on your applicant dashboard after we notify you. That's going to be a deeper dive into the focus of your organization and project, what you will hope to accomplish with the funds, also the population that's going to be served. So as much information that you're able to provide on that. With those marginalized groups that Aaron was talking about earlier, and how you address the priority criteria. And the criteria list will be on the application. So when you answer that question, it will be listed out there for you. But it's also listed on our grant program overview, which is what was on the apply page that I referenced to earlier in the webinar. It's always good to just reference there before you get started, and again, while you're completing the application. Some financial information we'll ask for on the full application, like organization budget amount. We're not going to ask for an actual upload or documents of the budget. It'll just be the amount. Also project budget amount if applying for a specific project. And we are no longer, as Aaron mentioned earlier, asking for specific budget line item amounts like we've done in the past. Instead, you'll have a budget narrative description for the overall amount that you're requesting from Allegheny. And like Aaron said, just making sure that you're being pretty descriptive and giving a good explanation of what those funds are planned to be used for. So for any of the questions on the application that it may be fitting for, another piece that we strongly encourage you to do is, we know that you submitted other applications to other foundations with a lot of similar questions. And so you might already have completed several applications with question responses very similar to what we're asking. So please, for streamlining and hopefully just to be able to save you some time on completing that, please feel free to copy and paste what you've submitted to other funders for those similar questions. And again, just to hopefully help save you some time on completing that, because we know that you're out there completing other grant applications as well. Okay, so here we just wanted to note some helpful application tips as you're moving forward. So if a past application was declined, the best thing to do before you go to reapply again is ask for feedback, right? Of the reason why the team and grant committee had decided to not approve that particular past request. The best person, of course, to reach out to here would be Erin, who's on the webinar today. She oversees the ACOR grant program. So please reach out if you need any feedback before you're looking to reapply if you were declined. And her contact information will also be provided. We're going to have that shared on the final slide. So be sure to note that. in case you need to reach out to her. Also, review questions in advance. To do so, there's a couple other, couple options to view them. You can either use the question list button at the top of the LOI or application. So when you're on the LOI or application form, you will actually see in the top right-hand corner a button that says question list, and you can print that out. We've also posted sample documents that you can reference. They're not meant to be submitted directly to us, but because that's coming through the grant system, but you can reference the information there. And we do have that posted on the ACOR grant webpage. So that could just be another option if you wanted to look at those questions, or maybe look at them with someone else before you start logging into the system to enter the information there. Let's see, and you can, oh, and that could be a good way. I was just going to mention, you could copy and paste. Once you use those documents, you could copy and paste directly into our grants management system. Any formatting of copying and pasting will adjust automatically in their system, so you don't have to worry about making sure your formatting is perfect. It'll automatically transfer and with the system. So another is, please complete your LOI as early as possible before the cycle deadline you're applying for. The LOI for our fall and spring cycle is set to be due 2 days prior to the full application deadline. So we wanted to give as much time as possible for applicants to get to that LOI, but the sooner the better. So you're not too much crunch time if it's approved to then get that full application in. So we do encourage you to submit it as soon as possible, so you're not rushed to complete the full application if the LOI is approved. And I'll be going over the timeline here for both cycle, for the LOI and full application on the next slide. So I'll share that with you in just a minute. And then finally for here, the save work often. I mentioned the save LOI or save application buttons. It's just always a good idea to save that work in case you need to come back to it later. So luckily our grant system does have that functionality to be able to do that, so you do not lose all of that work that you've completed. And again, just like with, you can access it again later from your dashboard using either the edit LOI or edit application link under the request. That's just going to be the edit link, name will just be based on what phase you are, in that process. And finally, of course, just like the LOI, please try to submit your application as early as possible. Of course, just like the LOI, we encourage you to submit the full application because again, that crunch time of the 2 days prior, we want to make sure that then the full application is received in time by the final deadline. And here is our timeline here. So right here, we need to receive your completed LOI and full application based on the cycle that you intend to apply for. So you can see here that we have our fall cycle and we have our spring cycle. So just noting these dates to make sure based on the cycle you want to be considered. So for our fall cycle, you can see the LOI is due no later than September 29th, 2021. If that's approved, we reach out, we make the full application accessible on your dashboard. That will need to be submitted to us no later than 12 p.m. noon on October 1st. So again, 2 days after that final LOI date. Decisions for that cycle are going to be announced sometime in November of this year. And then for our spring cycle, that'll be due March 30th, 2022, with the full application deadline of April 1st by 12 p.m. noon. So please, again, note that as well for the full application. If you're invited to, your LOI is approved and you're invited to apply with the full application, just knowing the full application we would like to receive by 12 p.m. noon. Decisions for the spring cycle are going to be announced in May. So again, just please be sure to note these dates and submit your application as early as possible. So hopefully this information shared is going to be pretty useful for you and helpful as you look into applying and are moving forward in the application process. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Erin now to provide our contact information and go ahead and close out the webinar.
Sorry, I did the normal thing of always forgetting to unmute myself. So thank you, Carla. That was so helpful. Very appreciate the walkthrough and all the details involved with the application process. And feel free to reach out to any issues you have at all with the application process at all with Carla. She responds quickly and has, very happy to do so. So you can see both of our contact informations here, our email address and phone number. Just know that, like I said earlier, that we are not working in the office, and so this is the office number. But please leave us a voicemail, and we will get that translated to an email and get that message right away, and we'll respond to you. If you want to, you can always just email us directly. That might be a quicker way to reach us. There's different ways to engage with us that we hope that you will do so. To learn more about who we are, you can, first, one thing that I didn't put on here is the newsletter. So if you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, please do so. Go to our website, which you'll see here on this page, www.afmfl.org. And on our homepage, there is a link to subscribe to our newsletter. Anyone in our database will get announcements about grant opportunities, specifically the ACOR grant opportunity, when those funding is available. So you'll want to, and you'll also receive our newsletters, which we try to do 4 times a year. Sometimes it's 3 times a year. Also, we are on social media, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. We also have a YouTube channel. And also, whether you complete the LOI and are approved for a full application or just do the LOI, we encourage you to review us on Grant Advisor, just like we had as a requirement, wanting to have feedback from your clients for the program. We want to hear from you about what's working. Is it what you liked or didn't like about the application or the whole application process? So please feel free to review us on there. It's anonymous, but it is helpful, and we do look at that information. So like, you have our information here. Please contact me with any questions you have about eligibility. If you want to talk about a specific project, or maybe you have a couple that you want to consider and want some feedback about which one might be a better option, I'm happy to talk to you about that. Please do that earlier in the process and don't wait till the last day or the day before to do that. And again, Carla is here to help you with any of the questions you have about applying, as well as reporting. If you're a grant partner and have questions about reporting, there's been a change in staff or anything of that nature, she is your go-to to talk to you about those issues. So I think that's all we have for you today. Hopefully it's been helpful to you, and this new process will run smoothly, but feel free to contact us with the questions you have. And we look forward to hearing about your organization, your projects, and hope you'll consider applying. Okay, thank you and have a great day.